Hello, my beloveds. First off, we're going to just say an affirmation that my camera works perfectly. It works perfectly for this sermon. And I want to keep this a short one, a really short one. In fact, I wasn't even going to do it, but I have to talk about, what many of us forerunners have gone through this past week, this past weekend. And, this is not to say that this is the energy of what's going on right now around the world and this is what everyone has to do. This is just what I went through. Maybe it'll somehow help you either now or down the road. So my past 3 sermons have been all about embracing the fear, embracing the darkness from the safe space where we are at the end of suffering and all that. And that was a gorgeous tool of unconditional self-love that I was given for, this level of my journey, this leg of my journey. And it lasted about 2 months. And here I am thinking that this is the answer to all of it. I have the answer. This is peace. This is peace. Just be the safe space. Just be the end of suffering for all of it. Welcome it all back in. Gratefully, but then also slightly terrifyingly, this tool was ripped away from me. And it's been a tough week. I would say a good tough week from Monday. I started coming out of it yesterday on Sunday. But all of a sudden, that tool was ripped away from me. And why? And this is the thing. When the tools are taken away from us, it means that they've done their job. And it means that there's a leveling up happening, a sort of an upgrade. And the level of intensity that we're going through is indicative of the upgrade that we're experiencing. And when the tool is taken away, what does that mean? It means that it doesn't work anymore. And not only does it not work anymore, you're not really inclined to use it. You don't want to use it. And when you try to use it, it doesn't work. But then also, what happens when we go through this is that we're disconnected from our inner wisdom. We're disconnected from, pretty much everything. But when you don't have that inner wisdom, it can be really, really scary. It can be really scary, especially when you think you've had this strong center, this strong connection now, and to not have it. Thankfully, I've gone through it enough times to know that this disconnection is just because there's a stronger reconnection happening. And I've said this in so many videos, but there's so many times that we're disconnected in order to be reconnected. I'm always going to give shout outs to Lauren's information at thinkwithyourheart.love. But according to her and her sources, this was a dismantling energy. And just hearing that word dismantling just really hit home, because if I was like just tuning into what was going on within me, it was like all these things just falling to the wayside, falling to the wayside, falling to the wayside. And of course I can do this now on the other side of it, because that's another thing. We're disconnected from even our inner source, our inner connection, because we have to kind of go through this blindly as a human. We have to go through it blindly as a human, using our human wisdom. And when there's no connection, there's no inner tools to use, there's nothing left to do but to surrender to whatever is presenting. And I'm sure some people can probably go through it a little more gracefully than I do. But I'm not even going to beat myself up, because I have these experiences for reasons, for whatever reason. So, so much fear came up, so much fear. And it wasn't even like I couldn't even get a handle on it to love it or embrace it. I just had to experience it and kind of let the wave of fear carry me. And there was just incident after incident of things that, it's causing me fear, causing me blindness, and things that weren't working. And, I know enough to just kind of, okay, this sucks and this will pass. And I just have to let it happen. Okay, it all came to a head for me on Saturday. And again, in my garden, it's funny, but it's not. I mean, it makes sense, you know? The outer reflects the inner. I started gardening the exact same year I started the spiritual journey. So my own garden is it's just a reflection of my own spiritual journey, my own life, my own self. But you know, I last sermon I'm telling you how I went out into the garden, was able to just feel the despair of, you know, the thorns and the prickers and the poison ivy and the weeds. I just let myself feel the despair. I went out there consciously. I'm going to consciously feel the despair in the state of my gardens right now. And again, I'm not being able to do anything about it. So I allowed myself to feel the despair, you know, got relief from that. And then a couple days later, I'm able to go in my garden and look at it in a place of non-judgment, of like, okay, if you don't have any judgment about what's going on, what's really going on? What's really happening? You know, and taking a step back and just being the observer and not looking at the poison ivy and the weeds and the thorns as anything bad. You know, that was lovely and freeing as well. However, what happened to me on Saturday, just 2 days ago, was something very different. Very different. So I went out there in my garden and the weeds are just everywhere. And I'm like, I'm supposed to just sit here and do nothing about it. I gotta at least pull some of these motherfuckers. So I chose an area that I thought was safe from poison ivy and started pulling the weeds. And I pulled a few and I picked up some, and there's some poison ivy hiding underneath the weeds. And I just kind of lost it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can't do anything. And for me now, I don't even have to touch the poison ivy. I just have to touch something that's touched the poison ivy, and I get poison ivy. And even though I know how to deal with it now with all the hair dryer and stuff, it's still an inconvenience that I don't want to deal with. You know, it's ugly, it itches, and you know, to blow dry myself a few times a day is a pain in the ass. We're getting ready to go on a trip, and I just don't want to deal with the poison ivy. So I lost it at that. I lost at that. And then I'm looking over to something else. The first clematis is blooming. You know, and garden to me is like what I tried to create is my heaven on earth. And the clematis is so gorgeous. And last year there's like 200 blooms on it. And this year I see one bloom and I go to look at it and I realize there's actually many blooms, but they're hidden by all the prickers. These like 10 feet tall prickers are hiding the clematis. And so I used this opportunity to just lose it, you know, just lose it. And I'm yelling and, you know, I can't do anything in the garden. I just have to accept that, you know, it's being taken over and I'm not supposed to do anything about it. I just have to let that shit overtake my life. And this is what happens when I don't have control, is that shit overtakes everything. And this is just a real human emotion. It's just a real human experience. So right after I lost it, I came in here and I go to my community, thingwithyourheart.love, and just, you know, type this out. This is what's going on with me. I can't take it, blah, blah, blah. And there was at least 40 replies from fellow forerunners that are experiencing the same thing in their own way, or have experienced the same thing in their own way with their own circumstances of just having to surrender, having to just step back, not try and change anything and fix it and just surrender. So, you know, I got myself under control and I'm like, okay, what emotion is presenting itself right now through my garden? And it was hate. It was hate, you know, it was absolute hate. And everything that I've drawn back to me, you know, the fear, the terror, the despair, the dismay, the anguish, the angst, everything I brought back, I think maybe hate is the one I fear the most. I won't even let my children say the word, I hate you. I don't let them say that to me. That's like the worse than any swear word. I won't even let them say it. So after I vented, you know, into my community, I went back out in the garden and I just said, okay, I'm just going to sit with whatever's presenting and I'm going to go look at the prickers and look at the poison ivy and what's presenting right now. And I allowed myself to just hate it. I absolutely hate it. And I would talk to it and say, this is why I hate you. You hurt me. You hurt me and you overtake the beauty. And this is why I hate you. And I just looked at the poison ivy and I looked at the prickers and I allowed myself to hate it. Whereas in the past, I would look for the messages in it and what it's teaching me and what it's reflecting back to me. And yes, that's all valid and it's all true. But right now I had to own the hate. I absolutely had to own the hate. Geez, that was a big one to welcome home. And then, you start to get messages from the hate, Is hate such a bad thing? No. It allows us discernment. But we have to own the things we hate. This is what we've created in our lives that we hate, and we have to know that we hate it so we don't create it again. And right now I can't change anything. I'm still not, it's really hard for me to go out there and not even pull a weed. But I'm not supposed to, or, I get poison ivy. So anyway, the hatred, calling that back and not worrying about the impact it's having on the plant. Oh, am I going to hurt the plant by hating it? Because that's all me. And, is this hate going to be contagious and what I'm going to be creating by owning the hate? But if we can own these things, then they're not repressed and they don't turn against us in a way that is just, really, really horrible or attention getting. So obviously I've just been saying no to hate for so long that my garden is saying, okay, you know what? It's time to, I'm sorry, I'm looking for a gorgeous quote that really just sums this all up. And this is from the Jeshua channelings. I'm sorry, if I can't find it in a minute, then, well, that's a good one too. All right, I can't really find it. But you have to own it. You have to own it. So, and once you own it, it doesn't turn against you. So I had to own the hatred that is within me and know that it's okay. That even judgment is okay. We try and turn so far the other way. I shouldn't be judging things. I shouldn't be hating things. That we, try to become these perfect things that are non-human. And frankly, judgment and hate is part of the human experience as it is right now. It's like having a full box of crayons and having all the ugly colors. And if you have all those ugly colors, you can still paint something beautiful or color something beautiful with all the colors. Just sometimes you need those ugly colors. But when you own them, they don't turn against you. So I was having to own the hate, and my garden did it for me. I had to own the hate and just let it be. And the longer I looked at it, and it's kind of interesting going around, I really kind of hate this, and that's okay. Wow, I hate this, and that's okay. It's okay. When you love yourself enough to hate, to own these feelings without trying to change them, this is what we do to get to the next step. And I did mention the Jeshua channelings. It's a gorgeous book. By Pamela Kribbe, who is also part of the book that I mentioned, Your Soul's Gift. And I just love the teachings coming through her. But when you own all these emotions, when you make yourself that full crayon box, that is the gateway to the greater self, to the higher self. And so that's just one aspect, is I had to really embrace this thing I didn't want to look at. I also had to not change it. I had to go blindly through this and just say, okay, I'm going to let this just carry me. There's nothing I can do, no affirmation, no tool, no trick. I just need to go through this. And what's next on the other side is a different relationship with energy, which I am now just starting to get the inner awareness of, the coming back to life, So I knew I was coming out of this. Yesterday was Sunday, and I had a dream that night, Saturday night, after my fit and after my vent and after embracing the hatred, that I was in this self-steering, seafaring vessel. And I wasn't really supposed to pay attention to what it was doing, but I had this knowledge it was going around the world, you know, like gathering everything it needed to gather or just going wherever it needed to go. At one point, I peeked out and I looked and saw that we were in the Antarctic and there were all these icebergs everywhere, everywhere. But this vessel was very adept at avoiding all of them. And I was told it's just best not to look, but just sleep. And many of the forerunners, myself included, exhaustion has been a part of this because our central nervous system is being rewired through all of this. And that's really challenging because when our central nervous system is getting rewired, it presents as anxiety, a racing heart. Just, you know, I'd wake up in the middle of the night just kind of shaking, insomnia, all that stuff. So anyway, I was just told to sleep and let the self-steering vessel carry me. Just don't try and steer the ship. Don't try and steer it. Not with an affirmation. Don't try and make yourself feel better. And of course, it all makes sense afterwards. You know, afterwards I'm like, that wasn't so bad. But when you're going through it, it feels like the deepest, dark as hell. It feels like a dark night of the soul. And it feels like absolute torture because there is no connection. There's no connection. But that's just because there's going to be a reconnection. We're never really disconnected. It just kind of feels like that on the human level. And that's just part of the rewiring, the recircuitry. So, something else that, you know, just use this if you ever feel, you know, your nervous system is just being amped up and it's being presented as anxiety. I mentioned this a little bit in my last sermon, but keep a loose jaw. You know, the tension. You don't want the tension. A loose jaw. It's really like giving birth. So a loose jaw, deep belly breathing. And even though it's funny, I could barely breathe when I was going through this. I know all about the pranic breathing and the belly breathing. I couldn't remember to do it, and when I remembered to do it, I didn't really feel like I could do it. Sometimes we can't even breathe. But just know that we'll get to the other side of it. We will get to the other side. And whatever we can do to just take care of ourselves, even if it's just sleeping and binging on Netflix series, just take care of yourself without the guilt, knowing that you will get to the other side. And there's always an upgrade and always an up-leveling on the other side. And there's never a finish line. But it does get easier. It does get easier. And with the wisdom we glean, we are so wise when we are able to embrace all these emotions and all these experiences. Not only did I have to experience hate, yesterday I had to experience terror, you know? And I don't want to go into this whole thing, but my dog and the next door neighbor's dog, who is about 1/6 the size of my dog, they don't get along. And, you know, their little dog comes and barks at our kids at the fence, and then our dog, you know, says, you're not going to bark at these kids. And if my husband's not there, then she goes and she charges, and it sounds like holy living dog hell over there because it's terrorizing to me, my children, the other dog owner who's screaming, no. I mean, terror. It's absolute terror. Yeah, I'm afraid that, you know, their dog is being ripped to shreds and we're going to have to move and they're going to sue us. I own another dog. I'm afraid my dog's killed their dog. It's happened a few times. And I had to face that terror again just yesterday. When we realize we are bigger than the pain, we are bigger than the hatred, we are bigger than the darkness, we are bigger than the terror, but we are a safe crayon box or we are a safe vessel to house it all, then we are full and complete within ourselves, and there is such wisdom in that. And that is where we can really, truly create, because we're not repressing anything and we're not suppressing anything, and we're allowing it all in. Okay, so we're freezing now. I'm going to end it here. I wanted it to be short, so it's going to be short. But okay, so to support your nervous system, loose jaw, belly breathing, flower essences, and just sleeping and take care of yourself with love as much as you need to. Even if you have to just put yourself in fetal position, rock back and forth. I love myself, this will pass. I love myself, this will pass. That is staying connected. That is staying connected. But everything changes after these episodes, and they might last a few days, they might last a few weeks, sometimes a few months, sometimes a couple of years. We've all been through this before. The forerunners, we know the dark night of the soul very well. To know that it passes. We never know how long it's going to last, but we know that we get through it. We get through it. And there's always an upgrade and always an up level and always another expression of ourselves and our divinity. So when the tools don't work anymore, when you can't be bothered to use them, or you just want to throw them away, it's because it's actually a graduation, and sometimes the graduation sucks, and you feel hungover without even drinking, but it is a graduation, and this is cycles, and this is how it happens. Okay, back to the land of the living, and I'm glad to be here. So just don't ever lose heart when you think you're going backwards, or you think that you just totally disconnected and you don't know what the hell is going on. Just love yourself. Know that you're connected no matter what. It will pass. Don't try and steer it. Just surrender to whatever's going on. It's always better on the other side. This is evolution. It's so much fun. I love you. I will pass around the offering plate. This work supports our divinity, so allow your divinity to support this work. I love you. Bye.